Before we get into the agenda, we have a special guest tonight from the Steuben County Public Health Service, and I thought it was a message that is important that we hear publicly. You hear so much about, the Flint with the lead situation in water, and we know where that lead came from. It came from pipes, old pipes in homes, and you had corrosive water, which caused it. And that's another problem in and of itself. But in our area where we live, we have a very aging housing stock. The average age of our house in the city is about 100 years old. And different things, different materials were used at different times during the course of history. And one of those things was lead-based paint. And lead-based paint is an issue in a lot of homes. And that's where normally our young children in homes that are in homes with lead-based paint and chipping paint and can eat those chips and raise their lead levels to dangerous levels in your stream. One of those, we know that happens. We know that there's concern, and there's things you can do about it, and there's some things that parents can do about it. So, Karen Travis here from the County Health Service is here to give us a little bit more updates on what we can do and highlight the problem here for people to be more aware of it.
Thank you. Mayor Hogan actually asked me to give you some statistics and talk about statistics at first. And you would think with the mandate that all children at ages 1 and 2 are supposed to be tested, lead screened, and tested for lead. But in reality, the numbers are far from 100%. In Steuben County, our numbers are actually 33.5%. So anybody have any ideas of why that would be so low? Go ahead. You don't have to be shy or anything like that. If you have, go ahead. Speak up too.
We're not that wealthy. We can't afford it.
Okay. I have had some instances where I've had calls that people said their deductible was such, was high enough. What could they do about that? But then I can draw it free at Public Health, and I can send it off, and it doesn't cost anything except a minimal sliding fee scale based on their income. That shouldn't be a problem. Why else? Why wouldn't they get it done? Awareness? It's not that big of a problem, is it? Maybe it's a bigger problem than you think. How about you have a mom or a dad and they have taken their child to the doctor's office and the child's just had 5 immunizations. The doctor says, here's a slip, go get the child's lead level drawn. How likely are you going to want to take that child to the hospital lab or draw station and get that done? So then what happens? We put it off, and eventually we just forget, right? Okay, so missed opportunity. Any other reasons that you can think of? There's one that's come to light recently, which I was a little surprised, I suppose. I was a nurse at Ira Davenport Hospital, and I learned to be very proficient on drawing baby's blood. And sometimes the lab personnel would come up if I were busy, and they'd say, they were supposed to draw it, but they'd say, could you draw it? And I'd say, okay. I couldn't draw it, but have a lot of pokes on a little baby. But when you get that little baby that grows up to be 1 or 2, it's very wiggly, that child is, and it's really hard to hold that baby. And then you get lab personnel that sometimes are squeamish about drawing on a child that's wiggling around, especially if there's not a parent or somebody that can hold that child really well. So I've come across a few comments recently where parents have actually reported that they've been talked out of getting a lab draw done when the parent actually showed up to get the lab job done. So this is a relatively new thing, and we're brainstorming ideas on ways to kind of figure out how to beef up the system a little bit. If you think about it from the one end, the agency that's the head agency of that lab station is losing money because they're saying, don't come now, come another time when somebody else is here that can draw. And then there's a missed opportunity as far as lead screening. So those are some of the issues as far as that goes. What are we doing about these things from public health? There is a machine that's called a lead care tube. It's a point of care testing, and it's actually a finger stick poke. Some of the doctor's offices in the area have this machine, some do not. There are issues with it. The kits that come with it, they expire after a certain amount of time. Maybe the doctor's practice doesn't see that many patients that they feel it's feasible. I've done a little bit of looking into the financial cost with some similar sized practices, and you know, if there's more than one office, they can shuffle these kits around and then make it work. So we've had cost of living allowance money through our lead grant recently, and so I have sent off a letter to a practice in Hornell, a practice in Bath, and a practice in Corning, offering some of that money for them to buy these lead care too, because they can poke the child's finger right in the doctor's office. It's a screening test. So if the level is high enough, they still have to go on and get the blood draw. But if it's high enough, then the parent's going to be made aware right there before the child ever leaves. So we're trying to facilitate this and get this information out. That's called a lead care tube or a point of care testing. Okay. One of the things that I think you might find interesting, and I was going to bring a baggie around and share my sweet treat, but lead is sweet. But I didn't think anybody would be takers on taking any of my lead chips. It only takes the size of a thumbnail to cause lead poisoning in a child, okay? And it can take a very long time for that to get out of the body, okay? Depending on the child, how well they eat, if they have enough iron and calcium in their body, they're less able to absorb more lead. I shared it with Mayor Hogan. One instance, we think about paint chips coming from siding, inside houses. We think about the water that might have lead in it. We think about children playing on the playground, or we think about old paint that might be on playground swing sets and things that kids like to chew on, or whatever, or swinging gate, or those kinds of things. But I did have a situation one time that was probably my most interesting situation with lead, because I receive all the lead results in the county, and we have different levels of follow-up. If it's a 5 to a 9.9, it's basically a letter of educational information that goes out. If it's a 10 to a 14.9, I'm calling the parents and calling the doctor. If it's 15 and above, we're actually making a home visit. And I coordinate with the New York State District Office here in Hornell. They go out and they actually do scanning of different surfaces. Most times it's not the water. This particular time I had a mother call me, and she said, I've been lead poisoned. And I thought, oh, okay, how do you know? And she said, well, I had lead testing. I didn't get that result. I only get the result for children, 18 and younger. So I don't get that result. And so I said, well, what happened? Well, it turned out that she was remodeling a staircase. And there was no plastic. It wasn't plasticed off in the rest of the house or anything like that. She did have 2 children. And she had 2 dogs and a cat. Where do dogs and cats play? Same places as little kids play, on the floor, okay? What do dogs and cats do? They lick their paws. What do little kids do? Put their fingers in their mouth all of the time. So what happened was the 2 dogs and the cat got sick with what she thought was the flu, what the vet thought was the flu, and so she hadn't done anything on the staircase in like 3 weeks. And she went to the vet, and the vet said, you're just going to have to ride it out, you know, but she was cleaning up all this mess from these animals. 1 dog and 1 cat died. So she took the other dog to a different vet, and the vet said, let's do a lead test. It was 236 in a dog. And I'm telling you that we go out at a 15 in a human. The dog ended up at Cornell and had to have what they call chelation treatment to bind the lead and get it out of the dog's body. And so anyway, I said to her, the way we get involved is for your children to get tested. So she had them tested. One came back at 15, one came back at 16. So she kept calling me every few days, and I gave her more information as she could absorb it and all of that. By the time that I went out, which wasn't too long, she had each child sitting down, the grandparents sitting down. Any question I asked, they already knew the answer because I'd already given it, and she had impressed it upon them what they needed to do and what they needed to learn. But one of the simplest things is frequent hand washing for children or for anybody. But if you're going to renovate, you need to do it right. It needs to be plasticed off, and you need to actually have like a lead certified contractor that knows what they're doing with this situation. And it is really important. A lot of times you think that you're just going to go hammering and demolishing and all of that, but you might be causing yourself some really major problems. Let's see. Housekeeping, just some basic housekeeping. What I tell parents is sweep up those lead chips and discard them where those kids can't get them. Another thing with renovation is everything needs to be damp mopped and damp dusted. Okay, throwing the rags away. Don't wash in clothing that the children's clothing is in. If you think about different occupations that parents might have, could be ceramics, could be metal jewelry making, like out of silverware. That's one I've had. And then you don't change your clothes when you come home, but the little one comes running and you pick them up and you hug them, you've all of a sudden exposed them. Looking for beards. I was to a meeting on Friday, and Finger Lakes Occupational Health Services woman was there, and there's been now some fathers that came home that had lead dust in their beard, and the children got lead poison. That was a new one for me. So I just present all these things for you to think about, some things outside the box. And right now, as far as it may seem like 33.5%, okay, we should be able to do something about that. But that's not, I don't have good statistics for specifically Cornell, or Cornell, or Bath. Because if you think about it, there's only that many that are getting tested to begin with. We're missing a whole lot of people. And if more testing were done, we would probably identify a whole lot more kids that have elevated lead levels. Currently, right now, I just have 10 kids that I'm following, and it turns out 4 of them are actually in Addison. Okay, so that happens to be a pocket. 1 in Corning, 1 in Bath, 1 in Painted Post, 2 in Cornell. I got 1 today. I'm going to have to follow up on that. So statistics are really difficult to come by for lead because the state system is called LeadWeb that all these results come through. And the reports that are available to come off that are really archaic and dinosaur, and they know they need to update and they're working on it, but not let go as it takes for a long time. Let's see. One of the things recently for children or parents who forget, we made these little magnets, they're little photo frame magnets that they can put on the refrigerator and take the centerpiece out. It has little paint brushes on the side because that truly is where the lead mostly comes from, is paint. And it says lead poisons people, especially children. And then the inside comes out and it says that 1 and 2 testing is for lead is what to do. That's the mandate. And then my child, whoever it is, needs a lead test on such and such a date. And until the level is low, to the doctor you must go. Okay, so it's just a nice little reminder for them to put on the refrigerator. And I've already had some comments about it. The parents seem to be liking it and like the little reminder. So when the doctor orders a test, even if they don't get it done that day, they can take it out and they have it with them. In this electronic day and age, doctors are faxing or electronically sending, and so the parent oftentimes doesn't have anything in their hands to even remind them that I need to have lead test done. So that's what we're hoping for with that. So for aldermen, because I have to be judicious on printing, I have just a paper here. It's lead fast facts. Children are attracted to sweet test in lead paint chips. Think about that window that goes up and down, and the little kid climbs up, and then that windowsill, they think, oh, look what that is. A little piece of lead. Oh, that was good. Let me have another piece. Okay? And that happens with a lot of our old buildings around here. Okay? So you can take one and then pass it along. And I know a picture is worth 1,000 words. Does anybody know how to identify what lead paint looks like? Has anybody seen any pictures of what lead paint looks like? It looks like the back of an alligator. It really does. And I'll pass these here. If you guys, students, I'm assuming, want to see them, just come look later and see what they have. But I'm sure you might all have it or have a relative that has a house that has this kind of paint peeling around it. I know that we did. Our house was built in 1910, and we took ours and ripped the whole thing apart. And I didn't know all this stuff 30 years ago, but I do now. So here's some more pictures and little captions that might be helpful. We did a lead map, and this is housing in fair or poor condition. And it identifies, if you look at three things, Bath, Corning, and Cornell are concentrated pockets of, obviously, higher population, there's more housing, and it's also where the lead pockets are. So we are trying to target those areas. I'm not saying the other areas aren't important, but these are where we feel that we can get the greatest impact. This right here, this particular map goes back 5 years, and the reason I had to go back 5 years is to have enough lead testing and screening data to make it somewhat useful. And Cornell is the pink area here. It does have the highest rates of elevated lead levels that we've been following. Okay. And this map is, we tried to identify poverty areas because that is associated with higher lead levels. And so it's percentage of children in school districts with free or reduced lunch, and then residences of children with elevated lead levels greater than 10. But I want to tell you about that level, doctors and we follow now, because the guidelines have gone down, greater than 5 or greater. But the system, the lead web system that we have to do, it won't track down lower, so I can't get the data for 5 and above. I can only get it for 10 and above. And then WIC sites, because WIC serves people that are lower income and poverty levels. So this is just a correlation of those things together. Most of you have, in one way or another, because you attend school, have heard about the lead in the water and all the testing that's going on at schools. One of our lead work plan projects this year is to get all of the schools that have elevated lead levels and plot them on this map so we can kind of correlate and see what that looks like. And I'll be interested, but it's going to take months for all this to come back. It can take up to 6 months from when they're drawing. This lead education awareness is actually something that I typed up. I have it in front of me when I talk to parents, and everybody's welcome to a copy. I thought maybe students might like that. Okay. And one of the other projects that we're doing, we know that daycares serve our children, our little ones that need to be lead screened and tested. So we're part of a Finger Lakes coalition, and there are 9 counties in that coalition. And so one of the projects together, we've been developing a daycare toolkit, and it's got all kinds of this lead information in here, and prevention, and just information that we're going to pass out to all the daycares. And in our county, we have 133, just so you know. So it's quite a big project, but that's almost ready to go out.